Thank you for tuning into the Boardroom, where we highlight important updates, discussions, and decisions from each monthly Atlanta Public Schools board meeting. I am Sharice Darby, and this is an inside view of the Boardroom from the March 4th, 2013 meeting. After the meeting was called to order at the start of the March board meeting, Superintendent Errol Davis and the board addressed the incident that occurred at Grady High School on February 27, 2013. Chief Marquenta Sands, Executive Director of Safety and Security, gave a brief presentation and answered questions from the board regarding the incident.
In sum, the incident was managed effectively, specifically agency coordination, media management, counseling, and parent communication. The administration communicated with the teachers and staff during the incident, and a staff debriefing was held immediately following dismissal the same day. Parents were notified within the first hour of the incident. The next day, February 28th, a community debriefing meeting was held for parents and community members there at Grady. Students debriefed the incident during homeroom that same day, and representatives from each class are scheduled to meet with the principal tomorrow to share their thoughts about how to improve school safety. There is one central message I think that we must send to our students, loud and clear, and that is that we have zero tolerance for weapons and violence on school grounds. It is critical that we review our security structure and personnel allocations. Reviewing and revising district protocols, it's important that we do that so that we make sure that our practices are aligned with best practices for emergency management. It's important that we ensure that our students and staff are aware of how they can report incidents anonymously. It's important that we monitor our drills and hold staff accountable for our expectations. Important that we raise awareness for staff and students as it relates to bullying and violence, and to continue to coordinate and train with our local first responders. Most of all, keep our lines of communication open so that we are working collectively across all facets of the district.
Thank you to Chief Sands and the entire security force, and to Grady faculty, to Dr. Murray and everybody at Grady, and to our APS, everybody at APS that came in to support this, as I was able to be there from a couple of minutes after it occurred and got to see the whole thing unfold, and it was just a sad and scary situation that was handled remarkably well by everybody involved.
I do want to reassure students and parents that student safety remains one of our top priorities, and we've been working for over a year, and these incidents sort of highlight the need for some of the changes that we'll be bringing forth to you in the future.
Chuck Burbridge, Chief Financial Officer for APS, presented a financial update presentation before the board at the March meeting. Burbridge's presentation focused the board's attention on the fact that the overall spending trend for the district is downward.
When we talk about the individual components, it's a little hard to see that we have been successful in FY13 of bringing spending below the FY12 actual. Our use of fund balance will shrink possibly by as much as $10 million, which would almost bring us down into a balanced budget situation. So we are receiving some favorable news as spring occurs, and the budget is performing. It will perform actually better than we expected when we started this fiscal year.
The board also addressed the ongoing budget work around payroll. At the February 4th meeting, some members of the board expressed concern surrounding the 2013-14 and 2014-15 school calendars. The board wanted to ensure that the input received from APS stakeholders was taken into consideration. According to Superintendent Davis, the calendar development process for 2013-14 and 2014-15 included a community-wide survey with approximately 5,900 respondents, as well as analysis of student attendance data. The proposed calendars were also reviewed by a diverse committee representing parents, employees, and communities across the city. Feedback from the committee was incorporated into the proposal. Following the February 4th meeting, the board held an extensive work session to discuss additional items and options surrounding the calendar. At the March 4th meeting, the board continued discussions surrounding the school calendars for traditional and year-round schools in the district and finalized and approved the calendar.
Committee has made a motion and Ms. Meister seconded it to start the school year on August 7th as opposed to August 5th. We would move the Teacher Learning Day in October from the 10th to the 11th and go to school on the 10th. We'd also move the 13th of February would be a school day as opposed to a vacation day. And
the teachers come back on the 31st.
The teachers come back on July 31st. Yep. That is the motion on the floor, properly seconded by Ms. Meister. All those in favor?
Is everybody? Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Rebecca Kay, APS Organizational Advancement Division, explains the details of the approved calendars, as well as the board's decision on year-round school calendars.
The final calendars that the board adopted for 2013-14 look very similar to the calendars that we have had in over the past couple of years. The big change for students and staff is that the board adopted a calendar that starts school on a Wednesday, August 7th. And that means that our teachers will come back for their 5 days of pre-planning in the middle of the week, the previous week also, on July 31st. The calendars continue to have short weekend breaks in October and February of 2 days. And we tried to balance out and have planning days spread out throughout the entire year. We did push the end of school back to the Friday before Memorial Day because our data showed us that we had a lot of students, particularly at the elementary level, who were not attending school the last few days of school when we were having a short week. The board decided that for 2013-14, our 3 year-round schools would continue to operate on a year-round calendar, and all of the calendars, as well as frequently asked questions, are available on the Atlanta Public Schools website, the final approved versions.
The board and the superintendent discussed the district's current cell phone policy at the March board meeting. The board particularly expressed the need for all students to have access to cell phones in the event of emergency situations or in order to get in contact with parents or guardians after school.
And at the Grady incident, it all flowed remarkably well, thanks to everybody involved working so hard on that. But I will say that I think one of the things that made that a better situation than the Price situation, where we had the very panicked and scared parents converging on the school that rightfully so wanted to know whether their child was okay, that in the Grady situation we did not have that because students were communicating with their parents. I think could have worked better in the Price situation if students were able to respond to their parents. But that still the parents being able to hear from their students does bring to light the middle school issue of the cell phones.
The Atlanta Board of Education discussed allowing middle school and elementary school students to carry phones in school without risking confiscation. High school students are already allowed to bring phones to school as long as they are turned off during the school day.
We've recognized that technology is moving very quickly. And so there are two parts of the cell phone policy. It was put in place several years ago. One is just the reality that our younger and younger students actually have cell phones, and their parents want to be able to stay in touch with them for after-school activities and those types of things. And quite frankly, a lot of our teachers are now using cell phones as a way to communicate to students. And so it really just makes sense for us to think proactively about what the policy should be, so we don't have people who are staying within reasonable but outside of policy guidelines. The second is a safety and security issue. When a school has an issue, parents want to hear from their children, and rightfully so. And in this day and age, there's no reason not to be allowed that communication to happen. And so we've kind of taken two steps. One is to ask the superintendent to relax the regulations, if you will, for this year. And then second, we're going to put together a full cell phone policy that addresses safety and security, addresses the age issue, and also begins to address the academic issues around just the fact that most cell phones now are really mini computers. and really could be used in the classroom for more proactive learning. Anything from as simple as a calculator up to being able to write papers and read books on your cell phone. We ought to be proactive about how we address that.
The board suggested that Superintendent Earl Davis issue a regulation relaxing cell phone restrictions. Davis said any decision he makes would reflect the board's intentions. During an emergency, students would be allowed to use their phones with permission from the school. A change in the school district's official cell phone policy could be approved before the end of the school year, but the board plans for Superintendent Davis to enact the change sooner with the interim regulation. The Atlanta Board of Education recently held public hearings on February 23rd and February 26th on the campuses of Carver, South Atlanta, Washington, and Thurl. During these meetings, Atlanta Public Schools staff discussed the proposed transition from designated small schools to small learning communities. The public had an opportunity to ask questions and provide written or oral feedback on the proposed changes. After close consideration of the feedback from the community, parents, and students, the superintendent announced at the March 4th board meeting that the small school structure will remain in place on the campuses of Carver, South Atlanta, Washington, and Thurl for the 2013-14 school year. At the March 4th board meeting, Howard Grant, Executive Assistant to the Board of Education, announced a new member of the board's Ethics Commission. Dr. Grant explained that a seat recently became vacant on the Ethics Commission. Mr. David Ross, an attorney and active member of the E-Rivers community, was vetted, trained, and the board has accepted him as a member of the commission. At the February 4th meeting, the board voted to approve 4 members of the Superintendent Search Firm Committee. At that time, Board Chair Reuben McDaniel explained that parent community groups would also come together to choose a representative. At the March 4th meeting, McDaniel announced that all selections for the search committee had been finalized. Board member Butler Burke suggested that the board present a resolution at the next board meeting naming the official members and their roles and responsibilities. The resolution will be approved at the April board meeting. Atlanta Public Schools took time during its March 4th Board of Education meeting to celebrate Board Recognition Week and give thanks to the 9 volunteers who dedicate countless hours serving the students, district, and community.
This year, the state of Georgia will celebrate School Board Recognition Week from March 18th through March 22nd. Tonight, we want to pause to be able to honor the contributions of the members of the Atlanta Board of Education and their commitment to promoting academic excellence for our students.
Superintendent Earl Davis gave thanks to the board members for all of the time and unwavering dedication they give to their positions. School Board Recognition Week is an annual event, and during School Board Recognition Week, local communities are encouraged to honor this group of dedicated volunteers for their service and commitment to the school district. School boards provide adequate resources to ensure student achievement, serve as fiscal stewards of the district, ensure accountability to taxpayers, establish key goals for their school district, form partnerships with others in the community, and create a safe, orderly learning environment. Thank you to the Atlanta Public Schools Board of Education for all of their service and dedication to the citizens of Atlanta. APS salutes the Atlanta Board of Education during National Board Appreciation Month for their tireless efforts and dedication to the children of Atlanta. In honor of National School Social Workers Week, the board recognized Atlanta Public Schools school social workers for the admirable work they perform, serving students and families in need. National School Social Workers Week focuses public attention on the unique contribution of school social workers within U.S. school systems. The celebration of School Social Work Week highlights the vital role school social workers play in the lives of students in the United States. This week is also designated to honor and recognize the contributions of school social workers to the success of students in schools across the nation. In this week's New Hire Spotlight, we would like to congratulate a recently appointed interim principal at Atlanta Public Schools. The board recently approved Andrea Zienge to serve as interim principal at Kennedy Middle School. Listen as Ms. Zienge discusses her plans moving forward for students and parents at Kennedy.
It is just an honor and a delight to be selected as a principal of Kennedy Middle School. This is a school of excellence. And it's a school of excellence because the first day that I stepped into these four walls of Kennedy Middle School, I saw excellence in the eyes of each and every one of the students that I greeted. And with having that spirit of excellence, being a part of the vision of Atlanta Public Schools, creating schools of excellence, that is what we are committed to doing here every day, every moment, every second, and we remind students of that each morning.
As a follow-up to the superintendent's State of the District address delivered earlier this year, the K-12 regional executive directors and school principals recently held forums to provide an update on the state of the schools in each cluster. Members of the board have attended these meetings as parents, students, and community partners learn how elementary, middle, and high school teachers and principals at APS are working together to develop stronger, more coordinated strategies for students in their feeder pattern or cluster. If you represent a community organization that would like to schedule a meeting with an APS leader, we ask that you call the Office of External Affairs at 404-802-2826. Vice Board Chair Byron Amos and board members Butler Burks and Harsh Kane recently attended a press conference in conjunction with Hyundai Motor America and the City of Atlanta. Hyundai Motor America donated 1,000 coats to the community organization Park Pride, the City of Atlanta's Mayor's Office, and the City of Atlanta's Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. The coats were distributed to Atlanta Public Schools during a special event on Tuesday, March 5th. Members of the board, community members, and students joined Mayor Kasim Reed and the representatives from Hyundai Motor America at the event at Bethune Elementary School in Atlanta. The Hyundai Coats for Kids initiative is in its 4th year and is part of Hyundai's ongoing efforts to provide coats to youth and communities in need. Members of the board also attended the 6th annual Shirley Clark Franklin Lecture Series on March 5th, 2013 at Coretta Scott King Young Women's Leadership Academy. The event is held annually in honor of Women's History Month and is co-sponsored by the Georgia Coalition of Black Women Incorporated. The lecture series is named after former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Clark Franklin. Atlanta Board of Education Chair Reuben McDaniel, Brenda Muhammad, and Cecily Harsh Kane participated in this year's event. The middle and high school girls who attend Coretta Scott King Academy had active roles in the program as they engaged the participants in learning activities and served as the audience for the event. At each board meeting, community stakeholders are given an opportunity to speak publicly to the board. Several of the public comments at the March 4th meeting addressed charter school funding, small schools, safety and security, and policy surrounding cell phones and valedictorian selection. Let's take a brief look at a few of the night's public comments.
What I really want to talk about, though, is to make sure that you guys really understand how this funding issue for charter schools is affecting us. We understand that it's an issue that is affecting the entire Atlanta Public School District, but we have to balance our budget that starts out smaller. And so these cuts that we've been dealing with and going into the budgeting season that we are in, if we don't get some solution and some relief, we will have to make extremely painful cuts.
We at Washington High, that model is failing us. The separate schools are failing us. There's separatism, there's classism within that model, and we're asking that you go back and revisit it.
As a parent of 3 Grady High School students, I can't say how much I agree with my board member. She is dead spot on about the cell phones. You had no chaos at Grady because the students were able to contact their parents. And I would suggest with respect to the middle school policy, you also really should consider that policy as well.
The recent shooting last week at Grady and then the Price Middle School shooting is very frightening for us parents, and the concern that we have as Mom Demand Action is twofold. The first concern is maintaining the gun-free school zones.
We have submitted paperwork to the district and to the board regarding an issue, a policy, and naming the valedictorian of the senior class. In essence, Ronald is being punished because he attended Tech High.
Board Chair Reuben McDaniel says the board has a lot of upcoming work centered around safety and security and the search for a permanent superintendent. Listen to Reuben's remarks regarding the March 4th meeting as he recaps important moments and outlines key objectives for the board moving forward.
Really the most important action item this month was the calendar vote. We voted on the calendar for 2013-2014 with a start date for school on August the 7th. And I think we've done a good job of balancing teacher time off with the productive in-class time that we need. And so I think people feel good about the calendar. You know, we did a lot of policy work, and it just seems like we continue to do a good job of cleaning up the policies so that going forward, that can really dictate where we go from a governance perspective. So I think that's important work for the district. We did have the opportunity to celebrate National Social Workers Month. We certainly have a great dedicated group of social workers that deserve more praise than they get, and so it's nice to be able to acknowledge them at this month's board meeting. And then one thing that's kind of subtle that probably went fairly unnoticed is we hired an audit firm to continue to work on the financial audits. And over the past several years, we have really improved that function and gotten some awards for that. And so we're really happy to work with Mulder and Jenkins again on the audit work. We passed that this month as well. Yeah, I think we're going into the spring in preparation for next year. And so obviously the biggest item always year to year in the springtime is the budget. So we'll begin work on the budget as a board over the next month or two. Of course, the staff has been working on it quite some time. But it's really going to be difficult for us to allocate a shrinking resources to make sure that we still get the type of service and productivity inside the classroom that we need to really help our students. So, you know, the budget's going to really dominate the conversation over the next couple of board meetings, I believe.
Thank you for tuning in. Tune in each month for information regarding the Atlanta Board of Education and important agenda items from monthly board meetings. The next board meeting will be held on April 1st, 2013 at the Center for Learning and Leadership, 130 Trinity Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia, 30303. Stakeholders who would like to provide public comment during the monthly Committee of the Whole meeting should contact the board office at least 1 hour prior to the scheduled start time of the Committee of the Whole meeting by calling 404-802-2200. Stakeholders wishing to address the board during the community meeting must register in person at the sign-in table from 5 o'clock p.m. to 5:50 p.m. on the day of the community meeting. Community members must list their names and agenda item or topic they wish to address. Community members will be given up to 2 minutes to address the board. At APS, we are renewing our commitment to you.